Hello, guys and gals, me Mutahar, and boy, I got some world is healing type shit to talk about today. Now, again, this kind of concludes the EDP 445 arc. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, the title of this video is pretty true. He might actually face some real time in prison, finally! So again, long story short, to basically cut things down, a few years ago, a rather large individual known as EDP445, one of the most beloved sort of meme characters on the internet, the guy that would fill up bathrooms with feces inside Chipotle, the man who's the fan of the Philadelphia Eagles, you all know who he is, was effectively caught in a sting operation trying to meet up with a minor. His argument at the time was, oh man, I'm just in there for a little cupcake action. And, he got away with it because at the time, the predator group that was poaching him didn't really relay this with law enforcement agencies and basically helped, I would say, at the time, a predator get away with a pretty serious crime. EDP445 is so lucky in this case that he was caught in a second predator sting operation by a YouTube channel known as Skeeter Gene and Gideon. And in that case, he also, too, got away. So this is a man that got caught in 2 sting operations and managed to escape, and you might be thinking, wow, with luck like that, what the fuck is in the future for him? Now obviously EDP445, as we all know, is basically in late-stage kidney failure. The man really doesn't have a lot of years left. He does not seem to qualify for a new kidney. And in light of all this, a documentary was released called The Sick Mind of EDP445 around 10 days ago. Now I don't really want to cover this at the time, mostly because, this documentary, Mike actually came to my house. We filmed this thing like probably 3 years ago at this point. And really, it took this long for this documentary to come out, and by far, it might be one of the most disturbing documentaries. By now, I'm sure if you wanted to have seen this, you probably have seen it, but if you haven't seen this documentary, it really is actually pretty fucked up. In fact, out of everything that I've ever seen on my entire channel, throughout my entire time on YouTube, this documentary actually seals one of the most fucked up pieces of video that I've ever seen. Basically, Mike follows EDP around for a period of a few years, for a couple of years, ever since the incident, documents the entire ordeal with him, and EDP makes so many damning claims in this entire story. He basically admits to a whole set of crimes that I don't even think were really being investigated in the first place. Like, basically, he's brave enough to go on camera and talk about his attraction to minors. He's brave enough to talk about what he wants to do to other people. Like, in some cases, really violent, fucked up shit. In one case, he showed a bitch list where I guess I made an appearance. He said he wanted to piss on my face, R. Kelly style.
Mutahar, get off my fucking nuts before I piss on your face on some R. Kelly shit.
Now, I'll be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, I think one of my greatest achievements on this platform is being hated by a predator. Trust me, to me, that is like a fucking mark of approval. I would never want anybody who is a fan of this fucking asshole, or himself, to be a fan of me, okay? So I'm actually quite happy that EDP wants to, I guess, R. Kelly my face. Not necessarily because I'm dying for the fucking golden shower, but the fact that I guess I'm on a bitch list for a predator, So anyways, all this aside, I think a really important aspect of it was, obviously, what did this documentary really achieve other than, I guess, reiterating the fact that this guy was a fucking notorious child predator? Well, according to this situation, the department, Kern County, the district office, is actually reviewing the entire case again. They said that we are re-examining the case in light of the statements made by the suspect in the documentary. Now, the sheriff's office isn't currently investigating because they're aware of the documentary. However, at this time, we're not actively investigating the matter unless additional information becomes available. Now, a really important part of this documentary for me was like kind of seeing the mind of somebody like this. So after EDP was caught, the interesting aspect about it too was like he ended up getting a fucking girlfriend at some point. I guess charisma really kind of carried this person through. Like at the end of the day, the guy actually has the charisma to sort of interact with women his age or above his age. So I don't know why he was necessarily chasing like minors, but obviously as you watch this documentary and you get an idea of this person's life, he very much is a sex addict, okay? He's very much a person that is so deeply addicted to pornography it actually just has bled into the sick decisions that he's made in reality. One of the most like wildest parts of this documentary, aside from all the, minor hunting and shit, was when like he found a girlfriend. Obviously, they weren't very sexual with each other, so he broke it off with her because he was annoyed, and his next relationship started off with him talking to like an AI, like literally talking to an AI chatbot, gooning with it, actually sending money for it to generate AI generated like pornography just to pretend it was a real girlfriend. And even in that discussion, he mentions that he wasn't going to show the chats because he started age playing with the fucking AI.
The role play, yeah, I mean, like sometimes,
What was the role play? Can you read it?
Well, to be honest with you, dog, I ain't gonna read that shit. It's kind of like some disturbing shit, dude.
What is it?
It's kind of like, pretend to be like fucking like, like 16, 17,
Like, I'm not even joking. This documentary, it's kind of hard to talk about because, by the time I finished watching it with Jen and everything, like her jaw was dropped, my jaw was dropped, and I was like, man, like, it's been a while since after I finish something, I've been speechless to the point where I just go to bed. And that's pretty much what happened with this entire documentary. Like, there was it's one of those things where, like, it starts off as a very, very decrepit car crash. And the runtime, basically, like, it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Now, there's a few things about this documentary that really fucked with me. We watched it like a week before it actually aired. Mike sent out a copy early. And there were two things that kind of hit me, okay? One of the things that I didn't like about the documentary was kind of the dramatization. There's a lot of cinematic points in the documentary that, it seems, obviously it's done for the purpose of, showing the story, but I think putting actors into situations where they're role-playing DMs being sent around, there's an aspect of that I genuinely consider to be not just controversial, but I don't know, I think reenactments like that, it leaves a sour taste in people's mouths, and obviously there was a lot of criticism towards this documentary, like, why do you have to, like, make it somewhat comedic in the sense that we're showing like an actor of EDP like fucking jerk off. We're watching like this whole like interaction between the decoy Sophie in the first sting operation and EDP text each other and have these like and talk about these sexually charged conversations. Like, I understand at the core of it, it's a very disgusting. Like, there's no point in this documentary where I think the whole like piece glorifies EDP. Genuinely, if you watch this documentary, by the end of it, not only if you've already disliked EDP, it'll make you dislike him a lot more. I don't think the dramatizations were super duper necessary. Like, the guy is such a piece of shit and a bad dude that you don't need to dramatize anything to bring that point across. But I do understand, like, it's an artistic choice, whatever. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it kind of has paid off because the actual county, which normally wasn't pursuing any investigations, are actually going at it. There was a lawyer in the documentary alone that even mentioned, listen, I don't know why he's doing this documentary. The more he does this, okay, the more he self-incriminates, the worse it actually is. And it seems like now that the case is open, provided they actually step up the case, EDP could actually face real fucking prison time because the shit he admits in this is already incredibly fucked up. Now, there is a second aspect to this entire, like, documentary that, blew me away. So the second investigation involving Gideon, Skeeter Jean, actually involved a decoy known as Kayla Hoskins. Now, this decoy at the time was like 15. So, again, Gideon put out his side and everything too, and I watched a little bit of it, but ultimately at the end of the day, nothing hits me here because when I heard that this 15-year-old girl was even involved, even as a decoy or just involved in the situation, the fact that she admits in her statement that Gideon allowed EDP to jump into a server where minors were present is one of those things that just blows me away as to how it could actually have gone this far. Ladies and gentlemen, to give you an idea, I think there needs to be a serious assessment on guys like Gideon, guys like Skeeter Jean. People like here's the thing. It's difficult to criticize people that are predator poachers because a lot of the argument just boils down to, well, do you side with the predator? Absolutely not. I don't like predators, but I also don't like the current wave of predator poachers. And by that, I kind of mean people like Gideon, Skeeter Gene, Vitali. A lot of these people that, yes, while they do get convictions, for a lot of them, this is nothing but a content farm. And a lot of it is meant for it to be very jokey. Like, a lot of it is just, hey, I want to paint this guy in a really terrible light, which you really don't have to paint a predator in a bad light because everyone fucking hates a predator. But the other thing about it is I don't understand making any of this like I get the entertainment value trying to achieve that, but it seems like the content and the comedic aspect of it is far more important to some of these people than actually getting dangerous predators off the streets. So again, when I found out that this girl was a minor at the time, and I guess she was wanting, even though that she wanted, I guess, to be a decoy from what I'm hearing with the other side, this is a minor, okay? A minor could say they want to do something, but as an adult, as the present adults in a situation, you should never, in a million fucking years, put a minor in a predator's path, okay? Even if you think it's for an investigative purpose, that, in a way, in of itself, is a form of child fucking endangerment. You know what I mean? Like, there's a reason why when, like, Chris Hansen, who also is present in this documentary, goes after predators, for instance, a lot of those videos are a lot of those investigations are done with not Chris Hansen. Chris Hansen, from what I understand, doesn't really do a lot of that stuff. A lot of it is mostly like a team of his that does all the decoy work, does all of the, they throw out the lures, if you will. These predators interact first. And then, of course, the cops are involved basically the entire time from front to end, meaning that, chains of custody and actual evidentiary standards are met so that, they can have their content, but at the end of the day, the people behind it get sent to prison. Is there an aspect of showmanship to all this? Sure, I'm 100% like admitting there is. But at the end of the day, I feel like the wave of predator poachers out there puts a lot more danger into letting these people get away. And again, Gideon is like, and Skeeter Gene, they're like far better than some of the worst people that I've seen out there who literally just actually commit felony assaults on child predators during their investigations, so that down the road, when cops do get involved, they realize that maybe the case wasn't done properly, maybe the decoy didn't do their operation properly, and because now you've got a verified assault, maybe prosecuting the case becomes that much more difficult, right? Like, yes, obviously people dislike child predators, right? But I hate people that help these predators get away with their crimes simply because of their own stupidity. Just because literally they want to make content out of this fucking situation. So again, to go back to EDP, effectively in this documentary, he admits to effectively a lot of fucked up shit, basically just straight up says it on camera. And I don't know if EDP got way too cocky, if maybe he was expecting that nothing was going to happen all this time. I think there's an aspect of it where he's so close to death at this point because of his late stage kidney failure that I think he's at like the I don't give a fuck stage. And really, at the end of all this, the documentary kind of ends with saying, listen, up until 2027, okay, there are still ways to prosecute EDP for the cases that he was involved in. It's just a matter of law enforcement putting their time and effort. Now, again, I feel like if this was just a purely sensational piece, there's enough to criticize like Mike on, for sure. But ultimately, it's crazy that at the end of the day, absconding all of the actual predator groups, really it was this documentary that got this that got the district attorney to actually look at possibly pressing charges again. Because I guess had this not occurred, EDP would have legitimately actually gotten away with it, right? And the thing about it is that I don't think that EDP is going to get a platform anymore that allows him to, well, I mean, it's tough to say that because ultimately he's as popular as he's ever been. Again, he's got a new wave of people following him. And at the end of the day, that also means that a child could also get in touch in this situation. Like, at the end of the day, like, regardless of how outlandish of statements that he makes, he is ultimately an incredibly dangerous predator who's just roaming around on the internet. And, we're kind of at a point where I think he feels that he's going to die before he faces any consequences. But this is the closest he's actually gotten to facing consequences for some of his actions. And I think ultimately, at the end of the day, the documentary, for whatever anybody has to say about it, probably has led to the most action, unironically, than any of the other predator poachers out there. I guess if there's one thing the predator, poaching communities that targeted EDP did, is raise the awareness and expose them in the first place. But just being exposed in the court of public opinion isn't really enough. EDP has to face actual he needs prison. Like, I think prison is the place he has to go to. With the thoughts that he has, the way that he views the world, not just kids, but his ops in this case, the enemies. This motherfucker needs prison, okay? Simple as that. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, this is all I had to really say. EDP, seems like the story is ending in a very positive note. Hopefully, again, they're looking into the case again. And I imagine when a district attorney says that, they are going to look through everything, leave no stone unturned, and hopefully find a path to prosecution. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. I am out.